Hi, welcome to Big Book Compendium. So last time, we've been in this chapter called There's a Solution. And last time we talked deeply about three types of drinkers. And you had the moderate drinker who could stop for a good reason. Why? Because he doesn't have an obsession. And the obsession is this reoccurring, persistent idea of drinking that doesn't respond to reason. And then you have the hard drinker who can stop for a strong reason. He even says that ill health, falling in love, change of environment, warning of a doctor, this man can stop, or moderate. That's not us because we have that obsession. And then there's a real alcoholic we talked about quite a bit. And that's the person that has the allergy. They can't stop once they start. They lose all consumption once they begin to drink. And they have that obsession, of course. Humiliation, suffering doesn't come to mind within that. We talked about the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story and about he might be one of the most funnest fellows in the world, let him drink for a day. And he becomes dangerously antisocial. So it pretty much leads off right after that deep story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. And so we're on page 22. So on page 22, where it says, this is by no means a comprehensive, it means complete. I'll let you guys get there. So it says, this is by no means a comprehensive picture of the true alcoholic, the real alcoholic, as our behavior patterns vary. But this description may identify him roughly. Here's what his family and friends say. Why does he behave like this? If 100 experiences have shown him that one drink means another debacle, with all its attendant suffering, humiliation, why is it he keeps taking that one drink? That's what outsiders say. Why can't he stay on the water wagon? Why can't he get on the wagon? They call that, that's the old term, being on the wagon. We probably remember those terms. What has become of his common sense and willpower? That's what people say, that he still sometimes displays and results of other matters. Maybe he's a really smart guy. Why can't, basically they're saying is, why can't the alcoholic resist the first drink? And they have no clue because they don't have the obsession or allergy. They can't relate. There's no empathy for them. It says, perhaps there will never be a full answer for these questions. Opinions vary considerably as to why the alcoholic reflects differently from normal people. Reacts, not reflects. Reacts differently from normal people. We're not sure why. Once a certain point is reached, little can be done for him. That's the best they could get. Once this guy reaches this high level alcoholic, there's nothing else that can be done. So what do? They put him in institutions. It says, we cannot answer the riddle. Interesting word is riddle. They can't figure out this puzzle. Why? Because it would take one of us to figure us out. Does that make sense? Bill Wilson, right? So they're saying, we're beyond human aid. We're beyond human resources. We're helpless. That's what they're saying. So, myself, I failed for years and years at recovery. And fail may not be the right word. Maybe I just, didn't apply it, but, I failed because I didn't reach that point of hopelessness. First I denied I had the problem. Then I thought at, some, I remember thinking that I have some of the problem, and that some of the problem was I didn't have this obsession you guys are talking about. I can control my thinking and not drink if I want it. But the obsession loves telling us that we don't have a problem. It loves telling us lies. That's what it did. And when I finally accepted I had the problem, the allergy obsession, but guess what? I couldn't accept the spiritual solution for my problem. I had the solution laid at my feet and some kind of spiritual tools, but I had to go out and do more research. I had to go out and do that other experiment they talk about in more about alcoholism, to go in the nearest place and try some controlled drinking. I didn't think that, but I remember one time drinking and going, this is an obsession. And then there was a sense of it. I already knew I had it. Why should I stop? But then it just whipped me so bad and I lost everything. I had to be wiped out. And I was returned ready to do the solution. back to the book, it says, we know that while the alcoholic keeps away from drink, as he may do for months or years, I don't know about years, but he reacts much like other men. And I think what they mean there is once we're separated from alcohol, we start to behave somewhat normally, maybe not spiritually, maybe not without resentments and fears that drive us back to drink. We start to react somewhat normally. We can think. We are equally positive that once he takes any alcohol, it says any, not some, any alcohol. So that can mean a teeny bit, right? It doesn't say, the average person, the normal person would think once he drinks a lot of alcohol. No, any alcohol whatsoever into his system, something happens both in the body and the mental sense, which makes it virtually impossible for him to stop. So the body part would be once he puts a little bit of alcohol into his system, he's off on a run. The allergies kicked in, right? And what makes him impossible to stop is this obsession. Once he runs out, go get more at all costs. So the experience of any alcoholic will abundantly confirm this. These observations will be academic and pointless if our friend never took the first drink, thereby setting the terrible cycle in motion. Therefore, the main problem in the alcoholic centers in the mind rather than the body. So what they're saying there is while the allergy makes us alcoholic, because it doesn't have its own brain, it has to be fed alcohol, right? It makes us alcoholic to go off on this run, right? And the obsession puts it back in our bodies, right? Against our will. So the main problem centers in the mind, because if the obsession is not there, we'll never put it in our bodies, right? So if our mind didn't tell us to do it, we wouldn't start again. So the steps remove that obsession, maintain it being away, recover us, restore to sanity, recover us from this disease. So it says, we haven't sworn off the problem. It's like it says in the book, it's been removed. And that's what it says later on. So we're going to go deep into the obsession now. It says, if you ask him why he won his last bender, the chances are he will offer you any of 100 alibis. So alibis are excuses, that we come up with. We love excuses. That's the obsession speaking through us. And, when I used to talk to sponsees, when they would be, call me up and say, hey, I need your help, but they don't want to do anything, or I tracked a guy down. I didn't realize for a long time, even though I had an obsession at once in my life, I was talking to an obsession. That's what my grandparents went out to me, you're talking obsession. And these excuses, what were our excuses that we had? What excuses did the obsession tell us? So we go out and drink and our excuses are, I hung out with the wrong people. I shouldn't have gone there. I shouldn't have done that. I should have called my phone list. That's what rehabs tell us, don't hang out those slippery places. It tells us to do that stuff. And those alibis are not necessarily true, because if they were true, they would have stopped us. Some of these excuses have a certain plausibility, which means they make sense, but none of them really make sense in light of the havoc an alcoholic drinking creates. Because the obsession is speaking again, it's the obsession talking. They sound like the philosophy, I love this, of the man who is having a headache, who beats himself over the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. So he's comparing, think of this for a second, he's comparing this mental obsession, this reoccurring persistent idea of drinking, that just whoops our butt when we're trying to be sober or dry, let's just say, dry, or in between drinking, we run out. So he's comparing this obsession to having a headache and then being tired of having a headache. So you treat the headache by beating yourself over the head with a hammer. So think about that. I'm going to crush my skull in to get rid of my headache. So that the headache just so it goes away. I don't feel the pain no more. We put alcohol in our body for the same reason. The obsession, to relieve the obsession, the mind, right? And we put it into our body, and that sets off the allergy in us, and we go on a run. That's why he's saying, I'm going to beat myself, slam my head against the wall to get rid of a headache. Beat myself in the head with a hammer. Same thing we've done for years. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of a real alcoholic, I'm going to say real alcoholic as we talk about, he will laugh it off because we did that, or become irritated and refuse to talk. So either we laugh it off or become irritated. When the person who laughs it off is irritated, that's why they're laughing it off. It's the same thing, right? Once in a while, he may tell the truth. Once an alcoholic lying when their mouth's moving, right? It does not say he will tell the truth. It says he may tell the truth. And the truth, strange to say, is usually he has no more excuses why he took the first drink than you have. Some drinkers have excuses with which they are satisfied part of the time, but in their hearts, they really do not know why they do it. And once this malady has a real hold, they are baffled. It means they're confused a lot. And listen, now here's another obsession. There's the obsession that somehow, someday he will beat the game. I like to say there's the prayer, God, show me the way to beat this, or some prayer, whoever we're talking to. There's the obsession that somehow saying we beat this, but they often suspect they're down for the count. So that's another obsession, that we have this reoccurring thought that we will beat the game, but deep within our hearts, we know we've lost. There's the insanity again, right? I'm going to beat this. Obsessions tell me, but in my heart, in my intuition, in my guidance center, is telling me something different. You can't beat this. And we ignore that until we do the steps and clear away all the stuff out of us, and we can connect to that guidance centers when things change. How true this is, few realize in a vague way why their families and friends sense that these drinkers are abnormal. But everybody hopefully awaits the day when the sufferer will rouse himself from his lethargy and assert his willpower. So here's the truth, is that will never happen. It's impossible because we have no power, no will. Our thinking is gone. It's scattered. I mean, like my family eventually learned, once I got in the program, I explained allergy to them the best as they could understand it, but they still don't understand it, right? The tragic truth is that if a man is a real alcoholic, so they're giving a condition there that he's a real alcoholic, the happy day may not arrive. He has lost control, allergy, at a certain point in the drinking of every alcoholic, not some, every alcoholic. He passes into this state where the most powerful desire to stop is obviously no avail. We don't even hear it after a while. It just isn't there. This tragic situation is already alive practically in every case long before suspected. So I've heard people in the meeting rooms say, once you have the desire to stop, you're done. Or you can. That's all that, and some say it forever. That's not true. If someone says that they never had the obsession. Tradition 3 says the only requirement for a membership desire to stop drinking. I think people get confused with that because someone else in the room said it, so they have it too. Desire to stop is for membership, not for sobriety. It's just said that. I mean, how long did you drink or use with a desire to stop? Think about that. How often did you wake up and go, I'm done? Or just drinking and thinking, I got to stop this. I have this desire. And you can't. I heard a guy explain last night. He's a bodybuilder guy, and he went from, 30 years, 35 years old, became a bodybuilder. And he was 160 pounds. And he was drinking, and he kept saying to himself, I have the desire to stop. I got to stop. And he goes, I couldn't stop. And he goes, and that was the thing. He goes, I hated drinking. I hated drugs. I hated everything about it. And I kept going. And he of course turned his life around and lived his dream. But the thing is he nailed it. I often mention in here that how AA members particularly hard drinkers in AA, love slogans. They love all these different slogans. And I often talk about how the fellowship, they love slogans all together. And many people try to follow these slogans almost like a program itself. But then if you ask them, well, explain what that slogan means, they can't. So it's kind of insanity there. But here's some examples that they say. Some of these I don't understand what they mean, but it says stick with the winners, right? I can understand that. Meeting makers make it. Put the plug in the jug. Don't drink one day at a time. Don't drink no matter what. Don't drink between meetings. Don't drink and go to meetings. Don't forget your last drink. Don't go to slippery places. They always tell us that. Fake it till you make it. And I know that one's weird. Just for today. Keep coming back. Stay in the middle of the herd. Call your sponsor every day. Relapse is part of recovery. This is my favorite one. If your ass falls off, come back and we'll sew it back on. People today love to post crazy facts. I mean, I'm talking the internet. I'm not talking recovery people. Crazy facts, whether about whatever, what's going on in the current world, whatever. And someone will shoot the fact down and they'll put up factcheck.org says this and shoots it down, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to do our own fact check on some of these slogans. But we're not going to use factcheck.org. We're going to use this next paragraph out of the big book to shoot these slogans down. So here's a slogan. People say, I chose not to drink today. Here's our fact check in this paragraph. Here it is. Here's a fact check. The fact is that most alcoholics, for reasons yet obscure, have lost the power of choice and drink. So you hear this all the time. I made a choice not to drink today. I thought personally that was the program for a long time. And I kept thinking, I'm really terrible at this program. I'm choosing every day not to drink. When's it gonna go away? I heard a guy with 30 years say, all you need is to wake up each day, thank God, and choose not to drink. I tried that. I kept wondering, I gave up on AA because of that. And luckily I found some book thumper guys, but how can you make a choice not to drink when the obsession makes you drink against your will? Just as the obsession does not respond to reason, remember, it lacks choice. It takes away choice. Lack means absent. In other words, choice is absent from, it's absent from the mind of the real alcoholic because of the obsession. Besides, if I was choosing every day, if I was choosing every day if I want to drink or not, would I still have the obsession? What I mean is there's people in recovery saying, who I know are alcoholics, and they get caught up in these other hard drinkers programs, I guess you call them, these slogan programs. And they're saying, like, I choose not to drink. If you're thinking about choosing whether to drink or not, you still have an obsession. Just a thought. Here's the next one you hear people say. It's still even up on the walls. And this one has a merit behind it, but not the way it's interpreted through the fellowship. Think, think, think. Fact check. Next sentence in the book. Our so-called willpower becomes practically non-existent, right? So think, think, think. I mean, how can I think myself through away from a drink if my willpower isn't there? It's not existent. My mental thinking capacity is stuck in a mental obsession. If it's going to come through this ear, oh, should I not? And the answer is going to come out. It's going to have something that revolves around drinking. So think, think, think is going to turn into drink, 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 because I have an alcoholic mind. The obsession occupies my mind. Here's another one. People say, we've heard this a lot, if I forget my last drink, I'm going to get drunk, or keep your bottom green. Look what it says here. And this is facts, right out of the big book. We are unable at certain times to bring into our consciousness the sufficient force of memory and suffering accumulation even a week or a month ago. A program of remembering suffering, is that healthy? Is that sanity? Here's the thing is, for that matter, is it spiritual? Relying and remembering suffering to beat the mental obsession. I don't want suffering anymore in my life. And how many times did I say I never thought this would happen to me again? Or after that, this will never, the last time this will happen again. No, I drank again. Or I can't believe, I did that again. Trying to stay sober in the last drink. My bottom, I'm going to say that my bottom is this: I have an allergy. That makes the most sense. But remembering I have an allergy, is that going to stop me from drinking? Transformation must occur. Awakening must occur. The thing is remembering humiliation and suffering is fine. But I remember getting arrested in the back of the cop car and thinking, I'm not going to drink. And as soon as I got out of jail, I had a drink in my hand. So a program, remembering suffering is insane. So it says, just don't take the first drink is another one. We heard that one before, right? You won't take the first drink and you won't get drunk. Well, no shit. Fact check. Look what it says here. We are without means away, don't have it, defense against the first drink. Just don't take the first drink. How can you do that again if you have no defense against the first drink? So, okay, think of a sports team, for instance. Any sports team. If they don't have good defense, I don't care how good they are offensively, you lose. Not just lose, but lose bad. And I can't believe they're saying this in AA still to this day. I just don't get it. It's right there with, don't drink no matter what. And, put the plug in the jug. As long as there are members that can do that, the stepless, programless hard drinker, nothing against them. They have a right to be there. But, don't drink one day at a time. You always hear it. And let's see how Bill Wilson did on that. Let's just check Bill. And let's go to page 5 real quick. And you're going to see how Bill Wilson, he tried this first drink thing. And I don't think it worked very well with him. I just have a hunch. So here's what Bill says on page 5. He says, I woke up. And I don't mean he's waking up out of bed or waking up, snapping out of it. Either way, this had to be stopped. I saw I could not so much take as one drink. I was through forever. Before then, I had written lots of sweet promises, but my wife happily observed that this time I meant business, and so I did. Let's see how well it worked for him. Let's see how well that program worked. Shortly afterwards, I came home drunk. Oh, it worked really good. And here, I love the way he describes it here perfectly, because I've been there. There was no fight. Where had been my high resolve? I simply didn't know. And had it even come to mind, the resolve means I can't drink. Hadn't come to mind. Someone had pushed a drink my way, and I took it. Taking it. Was I crazy? I think we've all asked ourselves that question a few times. Maybe even today. I don't know. I began to wonder, for such an appalling lack of perspective seemed near being just that. Back to 24. The almost certain consequences that following taking even a glass of beer do not crowd into the mind to detour us, because of obsession. Now he's going to describe between that first drink, they call it strange amount of blank spots later in the book. But let's say I'm sober for a while, and we hear the story in Fred and Jim later, right? But I'm sober for a while, but my mind's spinning out of control, resentments and fears and stuff. What's the mindset? Okay, they gave me a phone list. I'm supposed to break that up. I'm supposed to call the local AA number when I want to drink. I'm supposed to run to a meeting when I want to drink. He describes it perfectly. He says, if these thoughts, not to drink, occur, if these thoughts of drinking occur, they're hazily ready supplanted with a thoroughbred idea that we shall handle ourselves like other people. What she's saying there is, it's not there. It says there's complete failure of the kind of defense that keeps one from putting his hand on a hot stove. So here's the thing is, the defense of putting my hand on a hot stove, right? I mean, they say the joke with this is the alcoholic puts his hands on a hot stove and it burns him, and he goes back and does it again to see if it burns him as bad. You know, I remember I was doing a big barbecue one time in my backyard, and I got one of those chimney stars that you put all the charcoal in, and I put it right behind me, and I reached back and it caught my arm and burned part of my skin off. After that, I rearranged how I barbecue. Once I burnt myself, I never put it behind me again. I never wanted to go back and see how it felt. I have defense against it happening again because I have the sufficient memory. We don't hold that memory as alcoholics. We don't think of that time when we rolled our car, or when, you know, that. I remember one guy one time in AA saying that his wife threatened to leave, and he went to a meeting and was like, I gotta quit, and he drank right to the meeting, and then you realize, oh, my wife's gonna leave. It didn't come to mind. The obsession is that strong. Reoccurring, you know, it's the mental blank spots. We're supposed to pull out the phone list and remember all this stuff. It isn't there. Listen to this. The alcoholic may say to himself in the most casual way, it won't burn me this time, so here's how. Or perhaps, this is me, perhaps he doesn't think at all. So I do that a lot of times today. How often have some of us began to drink in a nonchalant way, and after the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, or whatever it is, pounded on the bar and said, for God's sake, how did I ever get started again? Wow. Only to have that thought, well, supplanted by, well, I'll stop with the sixth, or what's the use anyhow? You know, F it, screw it. You know, what's the use anyhow? I'm just going to keep drinking. That's when we totally surrender to the obsession, not surrender in a good way. We've given into it and realized this is the best life's going to get. I can't beat this thing. More slogans. Meeting makers make it. It's one we hear all the time, right? And just keep on guard. Go to meetings. When things get rough, go to meetings. I need a meeting today. You people keep me sober. You know, if you don't get drunk, if you go to meetings, you won't get drunk, all that stuff. I love meetings, don't get me wrong. So I'm not bashing meetings here at all. Here's the fact check, and it's also a prognosis too. When this, so prognosis is, we have diagnosis that tells us what our disease is, allergy obsession. Our prognosis that Dr. Silkworth says we're doomed. Here's more of a prognosis, along with a fact check that shoots down meeting makers make it. When this sort of thinking is fully established, an alcoholic with alcoholic tendencies, allergy obsession, he has probably placed himself beyond human aid. No human power, not your power, not your parents' power, no one's power, not the people in the room. And unless locked up, may die or permanently insane. You know, remember the old prognosis of alcoholism. We must be locked up. That's what they did to us. The only thought they could, you know, you gotta remember is the ideas that society gives us, we think are the answers. You know, oh, you got to go to school. They teach you the truth in school, you know, and the stuff like that. But the old prognosis for alcoholics was because the government went forward and said, let's, you know, that these guys are liars, cheaters, rapists, and thieves. Let's put them all in mental institutions in the early 1900s, right? Let them die or go permanently insane. Get them off the streets altogether. And we believe that. We believe that's the only place we could get well. Sad. Thank God for the steps, right? Thank God for AA. Think about that. These stark and ugly facts have been confirmed by legions of alcoholics throughout history. Real alcoholics cannot pull off a program based on human power or human suffering, whatever you want to say. If a person cannot stay sober on human, cannot stay sober on human power, they must work the steps and go to meetings too with it. If I'm beyond human aid, how can people keep me sober? So if I'm not doing the steps and just going to meetings, If I'm beyond human aid, how can people keep me sober? One day at a time, 1 minute at a time. I don't have lots of minutes left. Remember, we are powerless. We lack power. No human power. Zero. Zero. The cup is empty, right? Go to 99 real quick. Let's see what it says on the bottom of page 99. And this is vital information right here. Okay. It says, remind the prospects, so you're working on a sponsee, remind the sponsee, but this is what the point is, that recovery is not dependent upon other people. But you must go to meetings and find people that stick with the winners, right? It's not recovery dependent upon other people, it's dependent upon his relationship with God. They're telling us the only thing we need to be dependent upon is relationship with God. It's great to be around other people. It's great. And we'll see that in a few minutes. But, you know, back to 25. But for the grace of God, there would have been thousands more convincing demonstrations. So many want to stop, but cannot. In 1996, I heard a gentleman, break down the allergy obsession like I never heard before. I got a sponsor who explained to me even deeper the allergy obsession and told me his actual experience with the allergy obsession, but I wasn't ready and went back out after step 3, probably 2 hours later. And I meant it when I said it, but not as much minutes later. I had full awareness of the allergy obsession and put alcohol, drugs back in my system. I know there's people, in the rooms that in this room that used again to have the same knowledge, had the same knowledge, there's a saying you hear in the fellowship that's true. There is nothing like having a mindful recovery in a body full of dope, a body full of alcohol. A mindful recovery, the allergy obsession. Once you have that, I went back out with the allergy obsession and sitting there drinking one day and going, oh, that's the allergy. And I knew I had it. So how did I treat it? I drank more. I wanted to black out. So those last 4 years were dark. I had a diagnosis, allergy obsession. My prognosis was death. By the grace of God, luckily I made it back here with the steps, before I followed the wrong solution, abstinence, human power, and go to meetings. And I sit there sitting on my hands, waiting for that obsession to go away in pain, with like a knife in my leg, and not knowing how to pull it out, and thinking, okay, this will stay here the rest of my life. I can walk, so it's okay. Even though it's pain and I can't do the things I want to do. That's what the equivalence it was. That's why I do this study. That's why I do this stuff I do today. Adequate presentation of program recovery. I want people to have it. I'm going to read from the 12 and 12, if you have one. From this point on, I probably referring to 12 and 12 periodically, which means once in a while. So we're on page 24 of the 12 and 12, if you have one. And it says, why all this instance that every AA member must hit bottom first? The answer is that few people will sincerely try to practice AA's program unless they've hit bottom. For practicing AA's remaining steps is the adoption of attitudes and actions which most no alcoholic who is still drinking can dream of taking. I love this. Who wishes to be rigorously honest and tolerant? Who wants to confess their faults to another and make restitution for harms done? Who cares anything about higher power, let alone meditation and prayer? Who wants to sacrifice time and energy carrying this message, carrying AA's message to the next sufferer? Look at this. No, the average alcoholic, self-centered in the extreme, doesn't care for this prospect at all, right? Unless he has to do these things in order to stay alive himself. It says in this book that none of these guys really like this too much. The confession of their shortcomings. It says in how it works. So It says, look what he says now. Under the lash of alcoholism, we were driven to A. And there we discovered the fatal nature of our situation, allergy obsession. Then and only then do we become as open-minded to conviction, as willing to listen as the dying can be. We stand ready to do anything, which will lift this merciless obsession from us. The merciless is a deep word, means cruel, harsh, heartless, ruthless. The ruthless obsession from us. I love to stay alive himself. When you run out of options, and you've been running on A for a while, we always go back to the option that was right in front of us that someone offered us right away. And steps. I remember going shopping one Christmas, and this is a good example of intuition. Our intuition tells us when the steps are offered us, maybe I should do that. My brain and the obsession tells me, you can get, those guys are sicker than you. If I remember walking in the store one time to buy my wife a Christmas present, and I walked in there and I looked to the side, and there it was, the perfect present. I didn't think about it, I was drawn to it. And then my mind told me, there's got to be something better around this store you can find. I walked on that store for 2 hours, and guess what I finally bought? What my mind was drawn to. Guess what I finally did in the program? What my mind was originally drawn to, the steps, after I ran out of options and tried everything else before it. So I was told about steps at the beginning. I was told about them later, but I started over here and went up over here, you know. Page 25, there's a solution. So we talked about this before many times. The solution is a method to bring us to the answer. It's like multiplication. 5 times 5 is 25. The method to bring us to the answer is multiplication, not 5 times 5, not 25. Our method to bring us to the answer we use, 4 through 9. Our problems were powerless. So let's see what this says here. The solution, 4 through 9. I know almost none of us like the self-searching step 4, right? So they're talking about. That's the soul-searching, self-analysis. That's the inventory. They're saying that none of them liked it. It's like we read that a minute ago. Unless it do so to stay alive themselves. That self-searching is the essence of 4. The deep examination within our thoughts, within our ideas, within our actions. Why? We're trying to uncover what drives us. What makes you tick? Open an old school watch and look inside. Precision instant. There's little tiny things that make it go, right? There's little tiny things that make us go that we must examine, that drive us. You open up a watch and you get full awareness what makes it go, right? We're trying to uncover what drives us to those thoughts and actions. And that leads us to a new awareness, self-discovery. We like to call that spiritual awakening. It is the searching out the flaws within ourselves that are blocking us from God within, right? Look what that says next, the leveling of pride. Steps 4 through 9 is the leveling of pride, all of them, especially 9. I always thought like a leveler meant like, when you level something on the wall, like a leveler. So I just got to even out my pride. I got to even out what people think of me and just block it out. That's what they told me in rehab. That's what they told me in counseling, therapy. But if you look up the leveling, it says demolishing like a building. We're going to level a building. Leveling means to demolish. Pride is a part of our social instinct. As long as I have it, I'm always going to have fear what other people think of me, causing resentments and fears. How many of your thinking, this is the downfall. One of the main downfalls of every alcoholic, how others see me. I'm in the room and Kikin makes fun of me in front of other people. And all I hear is a joke. And I get resentful or sad because, they're making fun of me, what others think of me. How many times does fear of others think of me kept me things inside? I'm alcoholic. I have fear, whatever it is. It's self-centeredness and selfishness is the root of our problem. then overcoming pride is the key to becoming unselfish. Think about that. The more we do step 4, the more we do more 10-step, I get more aware of these things. I don't understand the people that want to do a 10-step like a seasonal activity. It's not a seasonal activity. It's a daily activity of inventory. And I keep doing it the same way. It says the confession of our shortcomings, step 5. So the confession is admitting wrong beliefs, wrong thinking, wrong actions that we prefer to keep hidden. Some of us may have done that growing up. Confession to church. You know, it's interesting, he calls it admitting a wrong's confession, because step 5 is not a confession. It's not. Neither is step 4. I mean, step 5 is not. If it was a confession, it would be 2 columns. Who I resent, why I resent them. That's it. Or who I harmed, why I harmed them. We have that 3rd column that makes it go way deeper than confession, you know? And with that 3rd column, we have the, you know, the instincts in there, the pride, the self-esteem and all that, right? That 4th column in you know, in self, which is on self-seeking, frightened, it's no longer a confession. You're beginning the process of letting go. You start to realize you're discovering this information so you can let go. Let's see what that means. So in 5, we discover the obstacles in our path. The confession of our shortcomings. The confession of our shortcomings, which the process requires for successful consummation. Consummation is a word I misinterpreted for a long time. I thought it meant something else. But if you look it up in a 1930s dictionary, it says to complete or achieve a goal. Consummation. To complete or achieve a goal. What's our goal? So let's think about this. When we do the 3rd step prayer, God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me, to do with me as I will, relieving the bondage of self, I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, the victory over them may bear witness to those that help, of thy power, thy love, thy way of life, may do the will always. When we do that 3rd step prayer, we turn our will and lives over to the care of God. We turn our lives over to the care of God the second the penance of the paper in step 4. That's how we do it, right? And think about that. Chuck Chamberlain, if you ever want to read a great book called New Pair of Glasses, fantastic book, maybe one of the best books I've ever written, besides Big Book. But he called step 4 uncover, which means to reveal and make visible something that was once hidden, right? He called step 5 discover, which means to become aware of what previously had not been known, leading to new and deeper awareness, right? And then he had the 3rd part he had was discard, which means to throw something away that is undesirable and no longer useful. So uncover, discover, discard. The successful consummation he's talking about, if we do a thorough examination in step 4 to uncover our defects, and 5, we discover our defects, how they drove us, and 6 and 7, I'm going to discard those defects. I'm not going to want them anymore. I'm not going to want, I had food poisoning last week. My body did not want the food poisoning in me. I couldn't wait to get rid of it. It was gone. Discard. Our brains need to do the same thing. I'm not going to discard something until I see what drove me there. Step 6 is the pinnacle step, because we did every step from 1 to have the ability to do step 6, to let go. All the way from 1. Our problem, that we can have power, that we make a decision to seek that power. I do 4 and 5 to bring my awareness, to gather the information, so now I can let it go. If 6 and 7 was, if there was no 4 and 5, if it just skipped to 6 and 7, just, we wouldn't tell. Like, I sat down with Annette, let's say, and she wants me to, okay, tell me your defects. I would only admit 3 or 4 things, but when we put it on paper and we spend our time with it, we write down everything, right? It really, so now it's not like places where you just go let stuff go or one thing go. They're asking us to come with a bunch of stuff. So step 6 is the pinnacle step, because we did every single one to come with letting go of those defects. So in a nutshell, 4 and 5 are the requirements to reach successful consummation of letting go. So successful consummation is 6 and 7. But there's one more ingredient for successful consummation: repair, 8 and 9. Repair our past by making right our wrongs. And so 6 and 7 is going to, I mean, before we do 4, we're going to look at, I got to make amends for this stuff. We don't want to do it. We worry about we're on step 2. What drives more people out of recovery? Amends, the thought of amends. But if you do the steps correctly and you do 6 and 7, right, and let it go, you go, oh, I got to go make these amends. The light bulbs clicked on, the awakening has begun, and you go make the amends, making right or wrongs. Uncover, discover, discard, repair. So 4 is uncover, 5 is discover, 6 and 7 is discard, 8 and 9 is repair. I'll say it one more time. 4 is uncover, 5 is discover, 6 and 7 discard, 8 and 9 repair. So here's the interesting thing. Step 2 is just about being willing to believe in a power greater than you. Just willing. Step 3 is just making a decision to seek that power. 4 and 5 is to have an awakening. But before that happens, how do you know it works? So if I'm just did a 3rd step with my sponsor, or I did set the 2nd step, and you talk about the spiritual, how do I know this thing works? It never happened. Let's go back to the book. But we saw it worked, and it really worked in others. There it is right there. That's why I was hooked on these book thumping people. You know, when I am new, I know it. I knew it worked because I saw it in people like you. I sat across my sponsor at a table, my grand sponsor, these book thumping people. I saw in those people who were awake. And I was able to find those people in the rooms by the way they talked. Before, they were just the people who were full of crap, right? They're just talking, they're lying. You can't be that happy in life. You know, it is that, you know, that first little bit of evidence that shows me this works, giving me the motivation I need to move forward. Do you see why it's important to bring the message to meetings? There's so many watches out there that aren't ticking. And we can wind those watches up a little bit by just bringing a little message. There's so many I know that know the message yet, and they speak beautifully. But when they come in meetings like this, but when they go to a meeting, they don't bring the message. They speak the same rhetoric you hear at meetings. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Oh, I don't want to hurt people's feelings. My grandfather say, sometimes you got to disturb the disturbed. And by not being rude, by just speaking the truth. Let's see what it says. But we saw it really worked in others, and we had came to believe in the hopeless infertility of life as we've been living it. When therefore we were approached by those in whom the problem had been solved. What kind of person is that? That's a recovered alcoholic, no obsession, doing the program. There was nothing left for us but to pick up the simple kit of spiritual tools laid at our feet. So what steps are the simple kit of spiritual tools? 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. As I said before, I had those tools at my feet for years. I had to beat into the sense of reasonableness over and over, hit myself over the head with a hammer a few times until I finally opened it up and took action. And I still have that toolbox, and I got the same tools. You know, as a sponsor, we put the simple kit of tools at people's feet in the hopes they pick them up. And it gets added to our 11th step, that person, hopefully they do this. We can't make them do it. You can't lead a horse to, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make them drink. Nor can we, we can't force them to pick up those tools. And I'll be honest with you, I put more toolboxes at people's feet than I've heard footsteps. Think about that. Most of them never picked them up. Some are passed away. But the ones who picked them up eventually, or picked them up the first time, got rocketed into the next dimension. The question I often ask people, sponsees have been doing this for, what's in your toolbox? What does it look like? You have to open it. And here's the problem. We put stuff in the toolbox that doesn't belong there. Meeting slogans, maybe it's church stuff, maybe it's therapy stuff, maybe it's rehab stuff, the books we read. And some books have great stuff that doesn't belong in that toolbox, right? Well, I'm going to add, Eckhart Tolle, who I love, Eckhart Tolle's 7, ideas of life workshop doesn't belong in that toolbox. It's something I can do, but it's not belong in that toolbox. Cool stuff. The tools is a simple kit of spiritual tools in that toolbox. I said again, are 4 through 9, and and they hopefully they're not dusty. If one thing I remember getting my grandpa's tools that I've been using in years, and my dad said, "Oh, these are good tools." I'm taking the wrench. I'm like, wait a minute, it doesn't open because it's been sitting too long. And then some tools you might go, I think I know how to use this, but you've never used it in years. You forget. If we do 4 through 9, step 10 daily, properly, that's the rest of our life. That's our goal, is to get to 4 through 9, to get to step 10. And also do 10, 11, and 12. We're there. Our tools keep working. What's in your toolbox? See, also says, we have found much of heaven and been rocketed into the 4th dimension we've not even dreamed. A rocket travels around 18,000 miles an hour. There's nothing travels faster. They're comparing our steps to a rocket, or the effects of our steps to a rocket. And, you shoot from one place to the next. Boom. You're a different person, right? Rocket to another dimension, another place in time. The other place in time is an infinite spiritual realm. We awaken into a new world. Like there's, not something we've never been to before. Is there any other program that can do that? Is there anything on this planet that we know can do that can change you that fast and make leaps and bounds like that? Boom, you're awake. No. It's show me, bring it to me. I'm waiting. I still got $1.50 in my wallet, wait for that bet. Still sitting there. It says we have found much of heaven also. Heaven is it's described as places where everything is perfect. We all know what heaven is, right? But he's talking about heaven on earth, heaven every day, which you start talking, that's just a pie in the sky thing, right? Heck no. It's so true. It's the condition of utmost happiness, inner peace, peace of mind, freedom. There's no place that I can go in this planet. There's no place I cannot go anymore. I can go anywhere I want to go. Where we live every second. I've been granted to live every second in love, kindness, and compassion, because I'm aware of those things. Do I do that perfect? No. But I've become aware of that. It happens outside of time, not out here. It happens in the now, in the 4th dimension, God consciousness. Let's see what else it says. This gets really deep here. The great fact is just this and nothing less. Here's what they had, the original guys. They had deep, effective spiritual experiences which have revolutionized our whole lives towards our fellow, towards God's universe. Here's what they're saying. We need a new attitude towards life, a new attitude towards our fellows, and a new attitude towards God's universe. Why? Because our old attitude towards life and our fellows and God's universe were anger, resentment, or fear, right? Or all together. He's talking about deep spiritual change, psychic change, the conversion, the adoption of a new belief system, right? Towards God, or whatever you want to call it. But it completely differs from the old belief system. That leads to a change of character and makes you whole, complete. Some of you searching for a whole life. Alcohol, we filled ourselves with alcohol, trying to be complete. Now we found that completeness. And when we have a conversion, we shift from human knowledge to spiritual knowledge, human thinking to spiritual thinking. So we get a new understanding that had previously not been known, leading to transformation of morals, ideas, thoughts, and lifestyle, all that stuff. Personality change sufficient to bring out recovery. It also says revolutionizes our attitude. That's a deep word because it means to make major change, radical change. Like the internet revolutionized and completely changed how we communicate, right? Go back, we can all go back and hear, I think all of us can go back before it existed, right? Think about it for a second. It revolutionized. And when there's a revolution in a country, the country becomes unrecognizable. So when a person is revolutionized, they become unrecognizable. It says our whole attitude towards life, our fellows in God's universe, have been revolutionized. Wow. I mean, attitude is one of the key elements of our personality. It involves beliefs, feelings, and values and opinions. It's kind of like our viewpoint of something. Think of negative and positive. So attitude is a favorable, unfavorable evaluation towards something or somebody. That comes from where? Our belief system, our mind. Many of these beliefs we've had our whole life, and they never change. We're not aware of them because we never looked at them, right? Know this, attitudes are hard to change. It takes principles. It takes a key to unlock those attitudes. Steps 4 through 9, our whole attitude towards life, towards our fellows, and towards God's universe becomes unrecognizable, revolutionized. If the old attitudes, if our old attitudes never existed, I mean, it's as if they never existed, I'm going to say. So getting these new attitudes is not a fake it till you make it thing, like I said in that slogan, or something you pretend to have. I'm going to act spiritual. It's a result of the steps. It takes work and action. So many want to sit back and go, they don't want to do the work, and then they try the steps half measures. Now they don't get it. They don't think they work. And here's what the steps gave me. And this is what I'm like today, I guess you could say. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty, beyond doubt, that our Creator has entered into our hearts and works in His way, which is deep miraculous. This is deep stuff right here. What's the one thing about a fact is this: you cannot argue with a fact, right? Because it's something proven to be true. A piece of information that is known. How do you know something? From experiencing it, right? Anything else is a theory. And we love those theories. And they also create doubt. They say the central fact. The central is the middle of something, the most important thing. So think of, when you think of center, think of circle, right? What is your circle? Think of a circle in your head and think of the most important thing in your life is at the center of that circle, right? In the middle of that circle. A central fact is something known to be true in the center of our lives. Absolute is something that's definite without question. No doubt. Beyond doubt. So when they say the central facts of our lives today, this is what they said, is absolutely certain our Creator's entered our hearts. They are saying that they are beyond doubt and that God was a central factor of their lives in the middle of their circle, nothing else. When you do the steps, God has to be the center of that circle. Can't be your family, can't be anyone else, because then you won't have that. They just disappear. I can have everything I want as long as God's the center of that circle. Absolute certainty. 4 through 9 gets me there. From my personal experience, that means we never question God. You just let God do the work. Why? Because we know He can. We're beyond doubt, absolute certainty. Then it says, lives in a way which is the miraculous. True fact. Miraculous is a characteristic of one of the characteristics of a miracle. Amazing, like stuff. So what do they receive, with God being the central factor of their lives? Check it out. He, God, commenced to accomplish those things for us, which we can never do for ourselves. Wow. That's the care of God aspect in step 3. So it says, if you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, notice it doesn't say kind of, and it also, notice it does not say as we are. It says we're. We're not alcoholics in a sense anymore. We're sober alcoholics or recovered alcoholics, right? the obsession is gone. If you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, we believe there's no middle of the road solution. A middle of the road, if you stand in the middle of the road, you get run over, period, right? But the middle of the road solution is anything you tried that did not work to remove the obsession. Rehab, therapy, church, meetings, exercise, whatever. I mean, what have you tried over and over again? How many things have you tried? We've all tried in here way more things than the steps. If you are seriously alcoholic, as we were, we believe there's no middle solution. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible. Wow. And if we had passed in the region in which there's no return through human aid, wait a minute, no return through human aid? I thought you people keep me clean. There's no power in each other. If we had human power, we wouldn't need to be here right now. We're on the beach somewhere having a good time, right? We stopped years ago, you know, I mean, we would have stopped years ago. Our moms would have stopped, our dads would have stopped us, you know, our husbands, wives, no human aid. We were in a position where life was becoming impossible and there was no return to human aid. We had two alternatives, and here they are. One, to go to the bitter end, blotting our conscience in trouble situations as best we could. Now, there's two ways we can blot the conscience of our intolerable situation. One of them is drinking. I'm going to drink so I don't remember I'm alcohol. You know, I'm going to blot it out. The other way is in sobriety. You know, not doing the steps and blotting out that I have all these issues in my head and ignoring them. I'll get better one day, but ignoring them. I heard a guy one time say alcoholics are the only people that ignore that they're sick when they're drinking and when they get sober. Scary. One is to go to the bitter end, blowing out a conscience, trouble situation as best we could, and the other is to accept spiritual help. You know, the one sentence is really long, and the second one, the solution, is really short: to accept spiritual help. In the other words, you could take the blue pill and the story ends, right? And you keep believing whatever you want to believe, and you stay in, you know, where you're at. Or you can take the red pill and discover just how far the rabbit hole you can go. You know, the red pill reveals the truth, and the blue pill will keep you in ignorance. And everything's the same. What's your choice? So many take the blue pill, you know, and here's why we take the red pill. Simple. This we did because we honestly wanted to, and we're willing to make the effort. We wanted it, and we're ready. That's a condition for spiritual help. So a condition you're going to be mentioned a lot. It's a prerequisite prior to taking action. Why you're doing this. A condition to do the steps is to honestly want it and be willing to seek it. Many do not honestly want it until they're ready. You know, today we talked a lot about spiritual transformation. Kind of radical change is absolutely necessary for true long-term sobriety. When that change happens, the real hard work must begin, 4 to 9 daily. You know, and that's the thing is, when that transformation, you can do whatever you want to do. You gain a spiritual awareness. You know, you learn to love all and all that stuff like that. And radical transformation of the mind, body, and spirit. That spiritual transformation won't occur. And once that transformation occurs, you know, everything changes and nothing changes. Physically, we look the same. Inwardly, everything's different. We must continue to do self-examination. So is the key to this awakening. You know, inventory is not just for your transformation. It shows you how to transfer others' lives as well. You know, so, you know, clear away the records of your past. If you feel the way you find, and join us. That's all I can say. Next week, we're going to do the story of Roland Hazard meeting Carl Jung, which is one of the biggest points in AA history, and very deeply on that. So